fuel. Even the guy at the petrol station speaks English and very well. Southern Russia in the UK, nobody's ever heard of it. They've never heard of Anapa. Beach, you've got a beach? What? They've never heard of this, you know. They may have heard of Sochi based on the Olympics. So for a Brit, the minute anything hits 20 degrees, summer. So I couldn't afford this house in the UK. If you pick this up and put this in my town, the price would be at least 4 times more. And that's one thing that I show a lot in my YouTube channel if I'm doing any filming, is the swimming pool.
And the sun rises here.
Sun rises there,
Okay.
comes over and sets here. So that's why we've designed it the way we have. There's always somewhere to sit in the sun or out of it.
What about medical care?
Yeah, now that's a big shock for a lot of Westerns. All my life I've been led to believe that Russia is snow, bears, gangsters, vodka, horse and cart. This is a saying that I have.
Is that true that recently you were near Crimea in your tank?
That is true. I came here thinking I need to be careful what I say and where I say it, because obviously England is deeply involved in it. The way that I have been treated by Russians is...
Why Russia?
I answer this on my channel very quickly and very easily. Why not?
Hello dear friends, welcome on my channel. And today we have a special guest from Great Britain. But we are meeting in Russia, near Anapa, in a suburb of Anapa. And he and his family has moved from Great Britain to this region, and they made a settlement here. And so I will ask him a few questions and would like to hear his opinion. Hello, Christopher.
Hi Maxim.
Did you consider any other places where you wanted to move, and why did you want to move from Great Britain?
I've travelled extensively through Europe. I've seen many countries. My wife had a flat here in Anapa. We met in the UK. We were married in the UK. We had no intention of coming to Russia. In fact, Russia was the last place I wanted to come to.
Okay.
As most English people, have that view. But I love my wife, and ultimately she said, we can go on holiday to Russia. All it's going to cost is a flight. So I agreed eventually, and it wasn't through her pressing me, but I just felt that it was the right thing to do, to come here on holiday. And that's when my world changed. Because
what have changed?
Well, we came here for 3 weeks in October 2021, and the first week was deeply confusing for me. I didn't understand what my eyes were seeing, because all my life I've been led to believe, wrongly, but all my life I've been led to believe that Russia is snow, bears, gangsters, vodka, horse and cart. This is a saying that I have. So you have this picture in your mind when the media constantly tells you this is what another country is like. So when I came here, and the first day I'm here, I see a drone the size of a car flying over the grape fields, spraying the crops. That was the start of my, what on earth, and literally.
So there were no bears with balalaika?
I didn't see them. I still haven't seen them. I have seen the vodka.
Okay.
But I haven't seen a horse and cart. I haven't seen any gangsters, and I haven't seen any bears, so I'm a little disappointed.
I hope it's a successful disappointment.
It is, indeed.
In terms of the situation in the world, how do people treat you, or Russian people treat you, or what's their attitude towards you as a Briton?
Okay, I'll be brief on this purely because I find it quite humbling and quite upsetting. And by that I mean the way that I have been treated by Russians is, I couldn't wish to be treated better. It has very much been a humbling experience coming here, because when we first came here, the current situation with our neighbours next door, shall we say, with Ukraine wasn't underway. It was just another country to go to. But when we moved here, it was deep into the SMO, and I came here thinking I need to be careful what I say and where I say it, because obviously England is deeply involved in this, and I had a perception that that would be a problem. And the opposite has been true. People have been, the first thing that, if I meet someone new, the first thing they say is, "Oh, you're from England, oh, fantastic. What do you think of Russia?" That's the first thing they ask me. And then, as I've said, I just cannot believe the warmth and hospitality. As soon as I start to talk to somebody, they're just so friendly and interested, and completely the opposite of what, coming from England, I was expecting. And that has been, at times, very humbling.
What was your biggest cultural shock when you came?
I think probably what I've just told you. The absolute opposite of what I was expecting.
Why do you think people have this attitude?
In England, unfortunately, we're an island, and our media is very controlled, and the narrative, the story of our lives comes from the media, and it's very one-sided. There's no access to Russian TV in the UK, and we come from a culture in the UK of believing the BBC. What the BBC says must be true, because that goes back to my childhood. I would sit on my dad's knee to watch the BBC News. It was an important thing. With the advent of the internet, I think people have wised up and have started to do their own research and go to an independent media and not mainstream. So that's helped. But our culture certainly is very much media based, you know, with daily newspapers, with reports on TV, with the radio. It's constant bombardment from the media.
I just remember myself, I traveled, there was a time in my life when I traveled back and forth to the United States and back. And I remember I found myself in America watching news on American TV, and I was looking at the news like, what's happening in Russia? Really?
Yes.
Well, my first understanding was like, how come? I just came from there. It's a lie. But in a few days, I was just watching it, just turn TV and watch it, doing other stuff. And in a few days, I started believing it. I was like questioning, really? Did it happen already? How come? And I found myself in an airplane flying back to Russia with the fear. I thought, my goodness, where does it come from?
Yeah.
And then I started analyzing from mass media. I remember landing in Pulkovo airport near St. Petersburg, and I was thinking, I just saw those pictures in America, how bad the Russia is. I'm saying, I'm Russian. How do I think about this?
Yeah.
But I couldn't get rid of those thoughts because it was just like, buzzing.
It's like programming almost.
Yes, it's what programming.
Yeah.
You do not speak Russian, right? No. How do you go grocery? How do you fill up the tank of your car?
So my wife and our daughter are both fluent in Russian and English, obviously. I don't really go anywhere without my wife and or our daughter. Filling up fuel, even the guy at the petrol station speaks English and very well, which really shocked me. But I have found that divert a little bit, but I have found that a lot of Russians speak English but are shy to speak it because they don't think they speak very well. Mm-hmm. And they all have spoken a lot better than they think they do. Mm. So that was a surprise. But generally, 95% of the time I'm with my wife or our daughter, and good old Google Translate.
Oh, okay. That helps. Yes. So you don't feel yourself limited with the boundaries of language. Okay.
No, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't need validation from lots of people. So
we are in your house. So you bought the house in Russia. So you are settling down here. And tell me a little bit about the house. How did you find it? Why here? Why this type of house? What was, how is it different? How would it be different in Britain?
Okay. So when we came here in October 2021, it was for a holiday. The first week of our holiday, we're here for 3 weeks. The first week was just, I just so disorientated. I didn't know what was going on. Week 2, the second week, I wanted to see everything. Take me here. What about there? Let's go here. Just wanted to absorb. And week 3, I said to the wife, I want to build a house here. And it's been her dream to return to Russia. She lived in England for a long time. And I think, honey, are you sure? Really? This is what you... And I said, yeah, I knew Russia was going to be... I didn't know at that point that we were going to move here permanently, but I knew Russia was going to play a big enough part in our lives that we needed a house here. So we went to a local developer, and they had 4 developments, I think, underway at the time. And we looked at each one, liked this development, liked this particular plot, and that was it. That was, I said to the wife, yeah, we're doing this. And she was, honey, are you sure? You don't want to go back to England and then think? And I went, no, I know my own mind. I'm very strong-willed. And I said, no, and she obviously pointed out, you don't speak any Russian, this, that, and I said, it doesn't matter.
How was it concerning the comparison with price, quality, size? Was it reasonable to buy it here?
So I couldn't afford this house in the UK. If you pick this up and put this in my town, the price would be at least 4 times more than it is here. So, things like this, we have a swimming pool here and we have a sauna here. That's a luxury.
Swimming pool in Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
For the bears.
For the snow. Yeah.
For the snow.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I show a lot in my YouTube channel if I'm doing any filming, is the swimming pool. Because rather than go onto a channel and tell Westerners, you're wrong about Russia, Russia is this, the best thing you can do is say, oh, it's a lovely day today, it's blue skies, we're going to go in the swimming pool. That has far more shock and interaction, I find, with people. They'll go, you've got a swimming pool? In Russia? Are you really in Russia? You may or may not know, but I'm an Englishman living in southern Russia, on the coast of the Black Sea, about 60 miles along the coast from Crimea, about 200 miles from Sochi, and across the water from Turkey. So, a bit of geography. Don't quote the mileage, I didn't measure it. My peach tree is absolutely covered in peaches, and it's doing really well. And I need to be eating that soon, as in like today. The poor thing, you can see it's bent to death with the weight of the peaches that are on it. But that's Russia, that's the soil out here. You put a stick in the ground and it grows. I've put a metal stake in the ground to hold that branch up, and I'm surprised that hasn't grown, to be fair. So, welcome to my very random live stream. They don't understand it, and that's a much better way of showing Russia, rather than trying to tell people, because you're a propagandist, we're not listening to you. Well, here's your own eyes. I turn the camera on.
Yeah, because people mainly know about Russia as a part of Siberia or northern eastern part of Russia where it's really cold. But Russia is huge, and this part of Russia, it's on the Black Sea, and actually Anapa region is the most sunny day. It has most sunny days a year in the whole Russia. I read it somewhere that it has 300 full sunny days a year.
Yep, wouldn't be surprised.
And those 52 days, they are left for the winter and spring. It's because during the summer, you can rarely see clouds in the sky.
Yeah. I mean, for me as a Brit, we always talk about weather. We're English, that's what we do. And the reason we do it is because the weather changes so much. There's always something to talk about. But certainly coming here, the weather was, a big draw and a big factor. And I think also the big change in the temperature, the climate, as you said, here is much nicer. And for me, the summer period extends a lot. As you pointed out today, I'm wearing shorts. Yes,
even I'm fancy.
Yeah. So for a Brit, the minute anything hits 20 degrees, summer. That's it. It's summer.
I'm from St. Petersburg, so I understand you very well. That was the reason we moved from north part of Russia to the south part.
Yeah,
because of the
and you're right about perceptions. If you ask, I would say 99% of people in the UK name a city in Russia, they'll say Moscow. Name another city, you might get St. Petersburg. Name another town or city, and they'll grind to a halt. They won't have anything. That's our knowledge, and the reason that's our knowledge is because that's all the media's ever told us and shown us. Southern Russia in the UK, nobody's ever heard of it. They've never heard of Anapa. Beach, you've got a beach? What? They've never heard of this, you know. They may have heard of Sochi based on the Olympics. But generally, no, people have no understanding of it.
Are you planning to get Russian citizenship?
Citizenship? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Does it give you any benefits, or what would be the reason to receive it?
I think that's probably why. I don't know. I need to. At the moment, we're living our life in as nice and good a way as we can, and we're taking not necessarily each day as it comes, because I've already applied for temporary residency. Okay. That was always a plan, as a minimum, because I'm currently on a family visa, and that's very restrictive. And I know I want to be here, so the plan was always to apply for temporary residency. Obviously, the president's recent 702 decree has made it a lot easier for somebody like me, because the language at my age, I'm not like a child that absorbs language and can just learn it. It's extremely challenging for me. Very, very difficult. And so I think to be able to pass the language test, I don't know if that would be possible.
Okay, yes, there's a language test.
Yeah. But now with the president's new decree, that language test isn't necessary for temporary residency.
You came here with a wife and a child. And does your child goes to a local school?
Yes. Yeah, she goes to local school in the village.
How does she handle it? She speaks Russian?
Fluent.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's fluent in Russian, fluent in English.
What about medical care?
Yeah, now that's a big shock for a lot of Westerners.
Okay, tell me more.
The medical care here. In England, we're told that we're so lucky. We're so lucky to live in England. We have the best healthcare in the world. The NHS is the best medical system in the world. And because you live in England and you live on an island, and that's the information you're told, that's the information you believe. And certainly going to other European countries, Spain, etc., there's always been we're lucky to be able to go back to the UK. Coming to Russia, that was one of the things that blew my mind. As I said, the first week we were here, my wife had an appointment with doctors. I went with her, went to a doctor's surgery in Anapa. I walked in and it's marble floors and chandeliers. And that was the first thing. It looks like a 5-star hotel. We have a box in the UK and it's white. So that's wow. Then the doctor invited me in with my wife, and he spoke very good English. He had a Bluetooth microphone in his ear. He was taking calls from patients while he was in surgery, which again blew my mind. That doesn't happen in the UK. If you want to speak to a doctor, they'll book a telephone appointment a few days in advance, maybe some weeks in advance. But he was talking to patients whilst in surgery. And I had, we call them moles, brown moles. I had, many all my life. Always wanted them removed because, sometimes you cut one or you catch. And my wife spoke to the doctor and he said, I'll look. And he looked at them and he said, would you like me to remove them? Okay, he said, because I can do it now with a laser.
Not with a knife?
No, with a laser. And pardon? Okay. And literally 10 minutes later, all the moles that I've had all my life were all gone. And being a Brit, I'm thinking, well, this is going to cost a lot of money. And when we obviously came to leave, I said, what do I pay? No, it's no charge. Pardon? No, it's free. No, welcome to our country, welcome to Russia. I mean, you know, that's just one of 100 things that I can sit here and tell you about. I came to Russia with a health condition that was being treated in the UK. I'd been operated on in 2012, had my throat cut open, had a lump removed. The lump came back a lot bigger, and I'd been in a process for about 16 months of tests, more tests, results, tests, kept going back, more tests. And my last consultation in the UK was, you've got to have surgery, you've got 2 big lumps. We either need to do 1 surgery or 2, and that's what we're going to discuss after the next scan, just to make that final decision whether it's 1 surgery and we can deal with both lumps. But that's a big surgery because one of the lumps is very near your vocal cord. You might never speak again. All of these things, which is like, so that's where I was in the UK. I came to Russia, and this is where healthcare blows my mind here. My wife said, we go to the local doctor, which is 200 meters away from us. We went there. Lovely, lovely doctor, so friendly, so helpful. Was horrified when I was telling him about why is this so big? We don't have this problem here. And I said, I don't know. What treatment are you on? I said, well, I'm not on treatment, it's surgery. And he was just, what are they doing? You know, do you live in a barbaric country sort of thing? And I said, but I don't know any different. And he said, no, in Russia, we treat this with tablets. And I'm like, okay. And he said, look, I've never seen lumps this big, ever.
No, Russia, we treat them with spoons. We just hit you in the forehead and you're treated.
Wake up.
Yes. Healed.
Yeah. And, you know, I had some scans and he was just horrified at the size of the lumps. And he said, look, I've never seen lumps this big, ever. So I'm going to put you on treatment. I don't know if it will work, but let's try. And that was 3 years ago. And the lumps have just got smaller and smaller and smaller. It was getting to a point where I couldn't breathe properly. You know, it was very, you know, invasive. Now virtually gone, just through taking some tablets.
Interesting.
So for me, Russian healthcare, I won't hear anybody say anything bad about it. It's like, I'm sorry, you don't know. Now, I understand Russia's a big country and I understand not everybody's story is as wonderful as mine. But I always speak on my own experience.
Okay. How about safetyness in Russia? You live in a suburb of Anapa. It's a small village, and it's not a megapolis where there's a lot of police, where there are always neighbors around. How do you feel yourself here?
I've got used to it now, but it's been quite challenging originally because I come from a culture where you can't leave anything outside. Your house must be locked. Your car must be locked. It must have an alarm on it. You can't leave anything on show in the car. You know, any opportunist thief, it's very common in the UK. I mean, you couldn't leave your phone on the table and go to the toilet in a restaurant. You just can't do that. Your phone won't be there. So that kind of culture, and then to come here and find that it's nothing like that. And again, I'm only speaking on my experience. You know, it may be different in other cities and countries, or towns, sorry. But my experience is I haven't seen any crime since I've been here at all. I haven't seen any violent acts. I haven't seen drunks in the street fighting. I haven't even seen road rage. Now, road rage is a common thing in the UK. It's a daily experience. Somebody getting angry with somebody else's driving, jumping out, shouting, screaming, you know, sometimes throwing hands. I haven't seen that once since I've been to Russia. And that's been, again, why? And I've learned that it's a level of respect. People in Russia respect other people and they respect people's property. And I've mistakenly left my car unlocked. And if I did that in the UK, it would be a major panic. I've got to run back to the car to lock it. And I've done that here when we first came. It was like, I've left the car unlocked, I need to run back and lock it. Now I understand that if I've left the car unlocked and I'm half a mile away, it's not going to matter because it's still going to be there when I get back. And I've left my phone on the dashboard of the car. I'm not saying I'd recommend it, but I've done that. If I'd done that in the UK, there's absolutely no way that phone would still be there. The window would be broken on the car and it would be stolen. And that just hasn't, you know, I'm not saying it may never happen in Russia, but it hasn't happened, and I feel comfortable about it. And again, early, me and my wife would go walking around Anapa at midnight, around the back roads. You'd never do that in the UK. You just wouldn't do that in the UK. That is not.
But are you talking about the whole UK or special areas?
Obviously, some areas are a lot worse than others. If you're very rich, you live in a rich area, you probably don't see the world that the average person sees. You don't see Britain. It's like tourists that go to Britain. Britain's wonderful, Britain's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I find that with Russians. England is amazing. It is as a tourist. Mm-hmm. If you go to England as a tourist, you will love it because you'll see the stately homes, you'll see the gardens, you'll see the parks, and you'll think everybody lives in a castle and it's wonderful. But the average person doesn't live like that. Mm-hmm. The average person lives in a different world. And certainly crime in the UK is very much a problem. And even in the town that we came from, 200 metres from where we lived was a park, and a lady was raped at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, just before we came. And in another park, about a week before we came, a gentleman was mugged. He was robbed for his watches. That's a common occurrence. So to come here and not see anything is, kids walk to school here. Yeah. And I've seen children hitchhiking. That doesn't happen in the UK. Just doesn't happen.
How about social connections? Do you have friends here?
Very limited. I'm not somebody that needs large numbers of people to validate myself. The people that I call friends are because we share the same values, we have things in common. And they're good people, so I don't need lots of people to know who I am. I know who I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I'm more than happy to be on my own or in a social interaction with 100 people. But I haven't got a massive circle of friends. Again, because in the UK you have a big circle of fake friends. You have your social media, and you have 1,000 people that are your friends, and chances are you haven't met a lot of them.
By the way, how did your friends in the UK reacted on your decision to move to Russia?
So my true friends were very supportive because they know me. They know that I don't, as we say in the UK, go off half-cocked. It means that I will process the information. I will think about something. I'll understand it. I'll look into it. I won't just go, oh, let's go and do that. Mm-hmm. I do sometimes, but generally, I'm a very logical person. I think logically. So they know that if I've made that decision, it's because I understand what's involved in it. So my true friends, what I call my true tight circle of friends, very supportive and very envious because, they see the life, they see my videos, they speak to me. But, and again, with the current situation, there are people that just come in, and make a bad comment or something. But it's more in the live streams. When I live stream, I'll get people, that come in. Call me a traitor, tell me I don't know what. I know I respond to being called a traitor the same way every time. I didn't know I was, Britain was at war with Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, Britain was at war with Russia. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how I'm a traitor. Mm-hmm. I haven't betrayed my country. We're not at war with Russia. Ukraine is. I'm not Ukrainian. Mm-hmm. So, it's stuff like that. I just, you have to deal with it as a YouTuber. It's part and parcel of it. Mm-hmm. But I find it a lot more in live streams.
So do you have tea or coffee here?
Yeah, in the summer. Not now, it's too cold obviously. But
okay, and the sun rises here?
Sun rises there, here. Okay. Comes over and sets here. Okay. So that's why we've designed it the way we have. There's always somewhere to sit in the sun or out of the sun.
All the fences are the same?
Yep, very nice tarmac road.
Pavement on the road. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You can probably even organize dances here.
Came to Russia, we brought one cat from the UK with us, a Bengal called Rosie. We gained another cat fairly quickly because mum had left and he was 2 weeks old. So I hand reared him, fed him every couple of hours with a syringe. Then we ended up with two kittens that wandered into the garden. Nobody knew where they were from. None of the neighbours knew them, but they appeared.
How many cats do you have now?
We have 5.
5. Is that true that recently you were near Crimea in your tank?
that is true. So unfortunately, that was trying to fool the YouTube algorithm by being selective. My car is made by the same company that makes the tank, as we know. So it was a play on words. Just to try and garner more traffic to the channel.
So you're driving a Chinese truck, SUV.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it work for you in Russia?
So
compared to maybe other cars you've used to have?
Yeah, I come from the automotive industry. 33 years in the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. High end. I used to work for BMW. I understand cars, and my cars were always BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and I've had a couple of Range Rovers. Range Rovers are specific to the model. If you get the right model, they're a good car. But anyhow, I would never have bought a Chinese car. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, wouldn't even look. Don't waste my time. We came here. I wanted to buy a Subaru. We went to look for a Subaru. We went to look at a Subaru, and it wasn't what we were expecting. It was very damaged all around the body, and that's not for me. And we were in Krasnodar without a car, and the salesman showed us several cars, none of which I thought were any good. And then he said, well, I've got a Haval or Haval, and I've never heard of it. So he showed it to us, and it was basically a Chinese version of a BMW X4. And so I looked at it and thought, it doesn't look too bad. It was very, very low mileage. It was in immaculate condition. And I thought, this will do for a few weeks until I find a Subaru. And we had that car for nearly 18 months because it just never ceased to surprise me. It would never let me down, never went wrong. It was extremely cheap to run. It was extremely comfortable to drive. My only complaint, I think, was the steering wheel. And towards the end, I didn't like the gearbox. The gearbox was a little bit lazy at times. But I absolutely loved the car. It was a very surprising car for the money. And then we've recently upgraded to the Haval H9 because we were so happy with the F7X. And the H9, I've read all the reviews. I've come from a Range Rover, so I understand how a car should feel. I wouldn't buy a Range Rover over that, not for 5 times the price.
What are your hobbies, and how do you maintain them here?
So I don't really have time for hobbies anymore. I suppose YouTube is my hobby. I like to travel. I like to go out. I get itchy feet after a couple of days being at home. I need to go out and just see. I want to observe. But I've done many things throughout my life. Scuba diving. I've done scuba diving here. Clay pigeon shooting. I was operating at a very competitive level in the UK in clay pigeon shooting. I went to Italy, had a gun handmade for me, so I was very into clay pigeon shooting. And motorbike racing, rider coaching and suspension setup for motorbikes. That was a big thing. And again, coming here, I haven't done that. I haven't done clay pigeon shooting. I'd love to do clay pigeon shooting, but it's not, from what I can tell, it's not a big thing in Russia. So I haven't looked into it too deeply, but I'd love to do some clay pigeon shooting again.
Are you going to explore your hobbies since you're here? Maybe you find something else?
Yeah, I think since being here, obviously we've had the house, and that's taken up a lot of our time. When we got the house, it was in the grey, no interior, so we've had to build all of that. We've had to plan it. Same with the garden. The swimming pool took up a lot of time. Lots of things have taken our time, so I haven't really had the time to devote to pursuing a hobby.
Mm-hmm. Making environment nice is also kind of a hobby.
Yeah. That was a goal of ours. When we came, I said to the wife, we need to make our home a place where we want to be, because in the UK, most people sleep in their house, eat in their house, and go and enjoy away from their house because the houses are small, the gardens are small. It's for most people, they'll live in an apartment with no garden, or they'll live in a very small house with a very, very small garden. And I said to the wife, we need to make our home somewhere where we want to be, not somewhere we want to leave. And that's what we've done. And, we're absolutely happy being here all day, every day. It doesn't, it's not a bad place.
Well, I guess that's it. Maybe you want to add something to my English-speaking listeners. What would you recommend to them?
I'd recommend them to, if they want to come to Russia, if they're unsure about Russia, if they think they know Russia, I recommend them to do some independent research, not go to mainstream media, get information from as many sources as they can, have a look at my channel. There's such a variation in videos. They're not glossy, they're not produced, it's camera on, camera off, but it's very raw and it's very original. And just, if you've got any doubts about Russia, just open your mind. And I promise you, it will completely change your life. If you open your mind and look at Russia with an open mind, it really will blow your mind.
Well, I think that we are at the point when West and Russia are going to renew their friendship as it was after Perestroika time, because we are at the point when we have to admit each other and be polite to each other and understand each other, because people, as in the UK, as in the US, in Russia, they're all the same. They want the families to be happy. They want the gardens to be green. They want sunshine.
They just want to live their life.
Basic interests, and we're not divided when we are, in the same place, and it's great.
I think I'll add to that's we need to come together. We need to learn to live with each other. Before coming to Russia, I would have said, Russia needs to understand the English person and the Western way. Coming to Russia, I now realise it's the opposite way around, that the West needs to understand Russia because they don't. They have no understanding of Russia or Russian people. They just have a narrative that they've been fed. And I don't think it's so much that Russians need to move towards the West. The West needs to certainly come to Russia and learn from Russians. There's so much that the West can learn by understanding these people in this country. And that's where the movement needs to come. Russia doesn't need to go to them. Russia has tried that. They've gone there and it's been, thrown in their face year upon year upon year. And now I believe that the Russian Federation, the government, has come to that realization and said, we have tried and tried and tried. Enough's enough. We put our people first. And the West now is facing the reality of not being the biggest boy in the playground. And they need to understand that the world has grown up and they're done with that mentality. And everybody needs to live in peace and harmony, but that's a two-way street. It cannot be all the way the West wants things. They need to understand Russians. And at the moment, nobody in the West understands Russia or Russians.
Thank you.
My pleasure.